June 28, 2005, 11:20 a.m., Hindu Kush Mountains, Afghanistan. 3 Afghan goat herders, 2 teenage boys and an old man stumbled upon 4 heavily armed American soldiers hiding among the rocks. The Americans wore no insignia, no patches, nothing that would identify who they were or what unit they belonged to. The herders froze. The Americans raised their weapons. For several agonizing minutes, the 4 U.S. Navy SEALs debated what to do. They were deep in enemy territory, conducting a covert reconnaissance mission. These herders had discovered their position, and in the mountains above them, Taliban fighters, hundreds of them, controlled the valleys and ridgelines. Lieutenant Michael Murphy, the team leader, faced an impossible choice. Detain the herders? They had no restraints, no way to hold 3 people while completing their mission. Kill them? They were unarmed civilians. Executing them would be a war crime. Let them go. They would almost certainly alert the Taliban. The mission would be compromised. The team would be hunted. Murphy made the call. Let them go. It was the stupidest, most southern-fried, lame-brained decision I ever heard of. Marcus Luttrell, one of the 4 SEALs, would later write, "But it was the right decision. The moral decision. The decision that honored the rules of engagement and the values they'd sworn to uphold." 1 hour later, between 80 and 200 Taliban fighters, the number has never been confirmed, attacked the SEAL team from 3 sides with machine guns, AK-47s, rocket-propelled grenades, and mortars. By sunset, 3 of the 4 SEALs were dead. 16 more Americans sent to rescue them were dead. Operation Red Wings had become the deadliest day for naval special warfare since World War II. This is the story of the special ops team that never came back, and the impossible choice that sealed their fate. To understand what happened on that mountain, you need to understand the mission. In June 2005, U.S. and coalition forces were hunting a Taliban commander named Ahmad Shah. Intelligence reports indicated Shah was operating in the Kunar province of northeastern Afghanistan, near the Pakistan border, leading a guerrilla group known locally as the Mountain Tigers. Shah's forces had been responsible for multiple attacks on coalition troops. They'd killed Afghan government officials, they'd ambushed patrols, and they were using the rugged mountains as a sanctuary, moving freely across the border into Pakistan when U.S. forces got too close. SEAL Team 10, operating out of Bagram Air Base, was tasked with locating Shah and gathering intelligence on his movement so a larger force could capture or kill him. The mission was codenamed Operation Red Wings. On June 27, 2005, a 4-man SEAL reconnaissance team was inserted by MH-47 Chinook helicopter into the mountains near the village of Salar San. The team consisted of Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy, 29 years old, team leader, a Penn State graduate who joined the Navy to serve his country after 9/11. Respected, calm under pressure, the kind of officer men would follow anywhere. Petty Officer Second Class Danny Dietz, 25 years old, communications specialist, a tough kid from Colorado who'd wanted to be a SEAL since he was a teenager, known for his fierce loyalty and refusal to quit. Petty Officer Second Class Matthew Axelson, 29 years old, sniper, from California, quiet, professional, deadly accurate with a rifle. Hospital Corpsman Second Class Marcus Luttrell, 30 years old, medic, from Texas. The team's corpsman responsible for treating injuries in the field. Strong, determined, a survivor, 4 men, lightly armed, no backup, inserted 10,000 feet into the mountains, surrounded by enemy territory. The plan was simple. Observe the village where Shah was believed to be hiding. Gather intelligence. Report enemy movements. Then extract after 24 to 48 hours. But within hours of insertion, the team encountered problems. The rocky terrain made communication difficult. Their satellite radio couldn't maintain a reliable connection with headquarters. They couldn't call in updates, couldn't request support. They were alone. And then, on the morning of June 28th, the goat herders found them. When those 3 Afghan civilians walked into the SEALs' hide site, everything changed. The team gathered to discuss their options. They had minutes to decide, maybe seconds. The debate was intense, passionate. These weren't politicians discussing hypotheticals in a conference room. These were men whose lives depended on the choice they made. Option 1, detain them. But they had no zip ties, no restraints, no way to secure 3 people while completing a multi-day reconnaissance mission. And even if they could, what then? Leave them tied up in the mountains to die of exposure? Take them along? Impossible. Option 2, kill them. Some members of the team argued for this, not because they wanted to kill civilians, but because the tactical reality was undeniable. If these herders alerted the Taliban, the SEAL team would be hunted down and killed. But they were unarmed. Civilians. 2 of them were teenagers. Executing them would be murder, a war crime. And even if no one ever found out, the men who did it would have to live with that choice for the rest of their lives. Option 3. Let them go. This was the choice Michael Murphy made, not because it was tactically sound, not because it gave the team the best chance of survival, but because it was the right thing to do. The SEALs released the herders and watched them walk away into the mountains. Marcus Luttrell wrote in his book Lone Survivor that he believed letting them go was a mistake, that the rules of engagement were too restrictive, that the team's concern about being prosecuted for killing civilians or appearing on CNN as murderers influenced their decision. But other accounts dispute this. The official Navy investigation stated the team followed proper procedures, that Murphy made the correct call under the circumstances, that releasing the herders was consistent with U.S. military law and international humanitarian law. Regardless, the decision was made. The herders were released. And about 90 minutes later, the Taliban attacked. The SEALs knew it was coming. They'd seen the herders running down the mountain faster than old men and boys should move. They knew reinforcements were being alerted. The team tried to reach higher ground, tried to find a defensible position, but the terrain was against them. Rocky, steep, no cover, no escape routes. Then the shooting started. The official reports say 30 to 40 Taliban fighters attacked the SEAL team. Marcus Luttrell estimated 80 to 200. An investigative journalist later claimed the actual number was closer to 10. The truth is, it doesn't matter. 4 lightly armed SEALs were attacked by a superior force on terrain that favored the enemy. They had limited ammunition, no air support, and no way to call for help because their radio couldn't get a signal through the mountains. The firefight lasted approximately 2 hours, but it felt like eternity. Danny Dietz was hit first, multiple gunshot wounds, but he kept fighting, kept returning fire, kept moving with his team. The SEALs tried to retreat down the mountainside, making 20 to 30-foot jumps between rock ledges to escape the withering fire. With each jump, they risked broken bones, twisted ankles, death from the fall itself. But staying still meant certain death from the Taliban guns. Lieutenant Murphy realized their only hope was calling for backup. But to get a radio signal, he needed to move into the open, away from the rocks that provided cover, into the clear where Taliban fighters could see him. Murphy knew what would happen, but he did it anyway. He stepped out into the open, exposed himself to enemy fire, and called the SEAL base at Bagram. His transmission was received. Backup was coming, but Murphy paid the price. He was shot multiple times, mortally wounded, but he finished the call before collapsing. For his actions, Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. Meanwhile, the other 3 SEALs continued fighting. Danny Dietz, despite being gravely wounded, refused to stop. He fired until he physically couldn't anymore. Then he was shot again, and again. He died still trying to protect his teammates. Matthew Axelson fought on despite multiple wounds, but eventually he too was overwhelmed, shot, bleeding, unable to move. He died on that mountain defending his brothers. And Marcus Luttrell? He was blown over a ridge by a rocket-propelled grenade, knocked unconscious. When he woke, he was alone. His teammates were dead or dying, and he was surrounded by Taliban fighters searching for survivors. At Bagram Air Base, the moment Murphy's distress call was received, a quick reaction force was scrambled. 16 men, 8 Navy SEALs and 8 Army Night Stalker aviators from the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment loaded into 2 MH-47 Chinook helicopters. Their mission: rescue the SEAL team on the mountain. They launched immediately, no hesitation. When SEALs are in trouble, you go. That's the code. That's the brotherhood. But there was a problem. The helicopters approached the landing zone in daylight. They were slow, lumbering aircraft, not designed for speed or maneuverability. And the Taliban knew they were coming. As one Chinook, call sign Turbine 33, descended toward the landing zone, Taliban fighters armed with rocket-propelled grenades opened fire. A single RPG struck the helicopter. The explosion was catastrophic. The aircraft lost control, spun through the air, and crashed into the mountainside. All 16 men aboard were killed instantly. The worst single-day loss for naval special warfare since World War II. Senior Chief Information Systems Technician Daniel Healy, Quartermaster 2nd Class James Sue, Machinist's Mate 2nd Class Eric Patton, Sonar Technician 2nd Class Shane Patton, 8 SEALs. Gone. And the 8 Army aviators who'd been flying them. Chief Warrant Officers Chris Schirkenbach and Corey Goodnacher, and their crew members Seamus Gore, Kip Jacoby, Marcus Morales, James Ponder, Stephen Reich, and Michael Russell. 19 Americans died on June 28, 2005. 19 families received folded flags instead of their husbands, fathers, sons. And on the mountain, Marcus Luttrell was still alive. Alone, injured, hunted. For the next 4 days, Luttrell evaded Taliban fighters. He crawled, stumbled, dragged himself down the mountain. He was shot in one leg, shrapnel embedded in both legs. 3 vertebrae cracked, dehydrated, bleeding, barely conscious. He hid in caves, drank water from streams, used his rifle to fend off Taliban fighters who got too close. On the 3rd day, Afghan villagers from Salar Ban found him. Under the Pashtunwali code, an ancient tribal law of hospitality and protection. They took him in, sheltered him, fed him, protected him from Taliban fighters who demanded they hand over the American. The villagers refused. Multiple times, Taliban fighters came to the village demanding Luttrell be turned over. Multiple times, the village elders said no. One of the villagers, Muhammad Gulab, risked his life to carry a note from Luttrell to a Marine outpost. That note triggered a massive rescue operation. On July 2, 2005, 4 days after the ambush, Marcus Luttrell was extracted by U.S. forces. He was the only survivor. The bodies of Danny Dietz, Michael Murphy, and Matthew Axelson were recovered 2 days later by Air Force para-rescue men. Luttrell wrote a best-selling book about the experienced lone survivor. A Hollywood movie starring Mark Wahlberg followed. The story became legendary, but the controversy didn't end. To this day, Operation Red Wings remains controversial. How many Taliban fighters attacked the SEAL team? Luttrell says 80 to 200. The official Navy report says 30 to 40. Investigative journalist Ed Darak, who researched the battle extensively, claims the number was closer to 8 to 10. Was the decision to release the goat herders the right call? Morally, yes. Tactically, it cost 3 SEALs their lives. But they followed the rules of engagement. They upheld the values they swore to defend. Could the mission have been planned better? Should the team have been larger? Should they have had better communication equipment? Should the rescue helicopter have waited for darkness before attempting insertion? These questions have been debated endlessly by military analysts, by veterans, by the families of the fallen. But one thing is certain: Michael Murphy, Danny Dietz, and Matthew Axelson died heroes. They made an impossible choice and paid with their lives. They fought overwhelming odds. They refused to surrender. They died protecting each other. And the 16 men on that rescue helicopter, they died trying to save their brothers. They flew into a hot landing zone in daylight because SEALs were in trouble. That's the code. That's the brotherhood. Operation Red Wings was the deadliest day for naval special warfare since World War II. 19 Americans killed. One survivor who carries the guilt of living when his brothers died. The special ops team that never came back. They're remembered every Memorial Day in the Murph Challenge, a grueling workout that honors Lieutenant Michael Murphy's memory. Thousands participate, veterans, civilians, people who never met Murphy but honor his sacrifice, because that's what heroes deserve. To be remembered, to be honored, to never be forgotten. Michael Murphy, Danny Dietz, Matthew Axelson, and the 16 men on Turbine 33. They didn't come back, but their legacy endures. If this story moved you, if you believe these men deserve to be remembered and honored, if you think their sacrifice should never be forgotten, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel, because there are more stories like this, more teams that didn't come back, more heroes whose names should be remembered, more sacrifices that deserve to be told. Operation Red Wings happened 20 years ago, but the men who died that day live on in our memory. And we're going to make sure they're never forgotten.